Okay, so just a second. Yes. Okay, so good afternoon to everyone. We need just a few seconds. Okay, so there is 50 people here, 50 Bulgarian companies, and so we could start. Distinguished guests, it's an honor for me as Executive Director of Bulgarian Small and Medium Enterprise Promotion Agency, part of the Minister of Economy, to be part of this online seminar, which once again proves the strong link between the Republic of Bulgaria and the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. I would like to express my deepest gratitude to our partners from the Saudi Arabian General Investment Authority for the excellent cooperation in the organization. Saudi Arabia is open for business. One of Bulgarian Small and Medium Promotion Agency's main goals is to promote the international cooperation between the Bulgarian and foreign enterprises and to assist the Bulgarian companies in increasing their international sales and market shares. This is provided through the organization of trade fairs, participation, trade missions, networking events, business delegations, and others like this one, for example. Over the years, the agency's team has made a great effort to develop economic relations between Bulgaria and Saudi Arabia. The agency has organized and co-organized many events with its Saudi Arabian partners that develop bilateral economic relations with the kingdom. Today, however, for the first time, we are meeting in an entirely online format, and the participation of so many companies shows that despite the complicated economic situation caused by COVID-19 pandemic, Bulgarian businesses want to find new partners in Saudi Arabia. And there are great opportunities for that because the increase of the bilateral trade for 2019 is a whole 37% compared to 2018. Bulgaria produces and could offer to the Saudi Arabia market high-quality products, agriculture, goods and foods, essential oils and cosmetics, machinery for the food processing industry, information and communication products and technologies, electronics and electrical engineering, pharmaceuticals, furniture, etc. The Bulgarian market has many qualities that the Saudi Arabian business community can benefit from. With its EU membership, Bulgaria is a part of a huge common market, and cooperation with Bulgarian companies is a feasible way to expand EU markets. I would like to wish everyone a fruitful seminar, and I'm sure that the information presented today will be extremely useful to you. A part of this information is Saudi Vision 2030, recent changes in the country, why businesses choose Saudi Arabia, mega and giga projects, support offered to international investors, incentive and stimulus packages provided to investors during COVID-19 pandemic. Now, I would like to give the floor to my colleague, Mr. Moisov, who is part of the Ministry of Economy and Commercial Consular in Saudi Arabia, in Riyadh. Mr. Moisov.
Hello, nice to meet you all. Some of us know me. So my name is Peter, and I'm the Bulgarian Commercial Consular in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, in the kingdom. So I'm very happy that this initiative became a fact, and even in this situation, in the pandemic situation, we are here to support the business, to support the all deals and everything that we are here just to support the business and everything. So I'm really very happy, and this is just the first step of this kind of webinars. So this is just to see what is the willing mechanism to doing business in Saudi Arabia, just to introduce our colleagues from SAGIA, and for sure the next step will be like specific interests in some sectors and to be more involved in the business relations and a lot of things. So this is just the first step, and I hope to be one of a lot of other steps. So I'll give the word to Mr. Rakan, who's representative of the Ministry of Invest and SAGIA also.
Yes, thank you very much, gentlemen. Thank you for the kind welcome. Thank you also for the interest of this many Bulgarian companies. I'm quite impressed by it, and it's a great opportunity for me to speak to you today. I'll just give a brief introduction to the Ministry of Investment, formerly SAGIA, and my role, basically our structure, what we do for international companies, and then we'll go into some more recent changes in Saudi Arabia, as well as opportunities in different fields. So SAGIA, as mentioned, has recently become the Ministry of Investment now. So it's now called MISA. The functions are same, basically. We have been the General Investment Authority, and we are now the Ministry of Investment with an elevation of our status, of course, a little bit more responsibilities as well. The main target remains the same, though, of course. It is that we support companies from Bulgaria, from around the world, to create opportunities and establish their businesses in Saudi Arabia. As we said, Saudi Arabia is open for business is the title today. And unlike in the past, I think for the past 2 to 3 years now, Saudi Arabia has become more open to the public in general, aside of aspects such as tourist visas and other topics that made travel into Saudi Arabia much easier. We're also actively welcoming investments into the country. The main reason behind that being, of course, that we have identified that it's important to diversify our economy and be less reliant purely on the oil industry, which is, of course, still the dominant industry for us in Saudi Arabia. But as the gentlemen have mentioned, there's many more opportunities in the country, from pharmaceuticals over tourism to industrial developments. And I'll get a little bit into details with that. But perhaps to the structure of the ministry, basically we have international offices, which is my responsibility. So my name is Rakan Al-Garawi, and I'm heading the international office in Germany, which will be responsible for Eastern Europe, except for Russia, and it will also be responsible for Germany, Austria, and Switzerland. So it's a great pleasure for me to speak directly to you in Bulgaria, and I look forward and I hope very much that the information provided will be beneficial to you. So regarding the structure, the international offices are the first point of contact. Basically, any requests, any demands, any inquiries you have, you're always welcome to approach me and my team. From there, basically, we will be distributing your inquiries within the ministry, and we have sector specialists who will then support for specific topics, as well as business support center, which can help you with different kinds of licensing topics or with other government entities, and the discussions or the requirements that they might have. So to get into it, basically, Vision 2030 is the dominant headline under which Saudi Arabia is going through very ambitious social, cultural, and economic transformations. I'll go a little bit into detail on this further down the presentation. But the main thing is that for the past, as I said, 2 to 3 years, Saudi Arabia has changed drastically, and we are very optimistic that these changes are very positive, and they will encourage people to further invest into our country, as well as work together with us to diversify the economy. The Vision 2030 has a variety of pillars that it is built on. Most importantly, though, is, I believe, the diversification of the economy, as well as the enablement of doing business in the country. We've done many reforms in the legal system, as well as I said before, we've made it a lot easier to travel into Saudi Arabia, and the visa process, for instance, with tourist visas, has obviously been much quicker and much more responsive. Of course, unfortunately, with the pandemic happening right now, that's currently suspended, but we look forward to welcoming companies that are interested as soon as possible and as soon as the situation has improved again. Could we move to the next slide? Or can I move it? Yeah. So Saudi Arabia is the largest economy in the GCC, and it's the 18th largest economy in the world. This being said, we see that many companies have been historically dealing with Saudi Arabia mainly and purely as an export market. This is something, of course, we appreciate. Supplies are important, but nonetheless, with the ambitious targets that we have now, we would like to combine this and add more value within the country as well. So aside of the pure export aspects, we're looking at supporting companies in establishing their presence within the country as well, and adding value through that. Next slide, please. So Saudi Arabia is changing, as I mentioned. It's one of the main things is the shift that we're going through from the mainly focused on the oil business industry to diversifying industries. There's a huge amount of demands coming through our mega projects and giga projects, as well as the general growth of the economy, for which we, of course, look forward to the support and the cooperation with Bulgarian companies as well to increase the footprint of those companies in the country. Aside of that, Saudi Arabia has a very large, young, and well-educated population. This is also something which under Vision 2030, of course, we've identified, and we need to create more suitable job opportunities for this young workforce that we have in the country, as well as, of course, establish opportunities for the population as well as businesses to grow. A major thing is also that Saudi Arabia is privatizing many sectors, healthcare being one of them, for instance. So a lot of sectors that have previously been purely government run are now being privatized to once, on the one hand, of course, improve the operation and make it more efficient, and on the other hand, of course, also to create more opportunities for companies in Saudi Arabia in general. So the G20 will be hosted in Saudi Arabia this year as well. To date, there is no indication that it will be delayed or shifted. So for the time being, we're very confident, and we're looking forward to hosting the G20 in Saudi Arabia and Riyadh this year as well. Perfect. So, as I said, there's many untapped potentials in the country, and I would like to go into more detail with that at the next opportunity, maybe, when we can identify some sectors that are of interest for you. and we can set some priorities on the topics that you would like to hear. For today, I'd like to keep it relatively on the surface and just give you a general overview of the opportunities and the potentials in the country. So as I said, we are actively welcoming foreign investors into Saudi Arabia now, and this is one of the main goals that has been given to me as well, to reach out to companies in two different main aspects. For one, companies that believe that they can add value and they have a business proposal for Saudi Arabia. And on the other, of course, we also have opportunities in the country that are brought to us by stakeholders, that being either major projects or major companies, also government entities. They would approach us normally with opportunities that they have, and they would be telling us that they are looking for different kinds of know-how or different kinds of manufacturing or any other concept, and we will then go out and approach companies that might be interested for that. So as I said, we're actively welcoming companies, and we're also still in a very strong position in a growing economy in Saudi Arabia, which means that the general growth rates for us over the past years have been very positive. And in spite of the current crisis, we're very optimistic that our economy is constantly also going to continue on growing. Next slide, please. Yeah, this is just a small indication of the different sectors that we see opportunities in. And as I've mentioned, it is a very big and diversified portfolio that we're looking at here. So priority topics, of course, for us right now are energy, but also tourism and pharmaceuticals, healthcare sector. These are all things that we're currently developing. I think the tourism sector is a very interesting one. I'll go into a little bit more detail on that a few slides down. Mainly due to the fact that for us, of course, in Saudi Arabia, tourism is a very new concept, which means whatever is currently being developed is being developed pretty much from scratch. So there's a lot of opportunities, a lot of greenfield projects as well, for which I believe many companies will be able to add a lot of value. Other sectors, of course, go into the transportation and logistics. Education is a very important topic. So I think there's probably something for everyone on the list, and I look forward to getting some more details from your side, ladies and gentlemen, as well, on what your priorities are and how we can best support you here. Next slide, please. Of course, Saudi Arabia has in the past already been quite active, and we have a lot of international companies that are already present in Saudi Arabia. This list is just a brief overview of some of the major companies. I believe many of them are, or these are all very well-known companies. And again, for us, it is one thing that we support these companies that are operating in the country, but we also, of course, are always actively looking for additional companies who are interested in Saudi Arabia and who we can support there. These companies listed here are mostly well, large corporations. Over the past months in several meetings as well, it's always been stressed again and again by our leadership that small and medium entities are just as important to us as these multinational or large corporations. It's the know-how and it's often enough the capability of making decisions in a small and medium entity that makes them actually more interesting in some cases for us, and they will support us more also in diversifying our industry and our economy, which is why, again, I'm so glad about the opportunity today to specifically have our hosts put this together for us. Next slide, please. Yeah, with that, we can already go into the big question, why Saudi Arabia? There's many opportunities worldwide, and I believe, especially nowadays, many countries are looking for investors and looking for companies to set up businesses. For us in Saudi Arabia, I believe it's a very clear picture that we have recently only been so active and opened up our borders to countries. We have the possibilities of 100% foreign ownership now. So a lot of these changes have been done over the past 2 years, which means in many cases, Saudi Arabia is still an untapped potential, let's say, if you will. And the growth opportunities are immense, not only with the mega projects and giga projects that we have, but as I said before, the general market growth and the economic growth is constant as well. Next slide, please. Yeah, it's we've summarized it in 7 key reasons, basically, why companies should be or would be willing to invest in Saudi Arabia. We've gone through a very ambitious reform journey. I'll give a little bit more insight on that in a moment. We have game-changing opportunities from our mega and giga projects, where we will see a few examples later on as well, to the large companies and corporations that we have in Saudi Arabia, up to also, of course, logistic projects that we're working on, railway projects, as well as the metro and other big concepts that we're following in Saudi Arabia to further develop the country. Property solutions is definitely a topic that might be interesting. Again, this is a bit further down the line, but we have some very good offers there for companies, especially in sectors that we deemed as very important. We can always support with finance and many other incentives that we can offer there. I've mentioned the young and skilled workforce. So in Saudi Arabia, around 30% of the population is below the age of 30 or below the age of 29. And we have a very good education system, as well as universities in the country, which gives us the opportunity now to actually have access to a young and skilled workforce in the country, which is, of course, a great benefit. The quality of life is an important topic that we're expanding on. And here, of course, all of the reforms also go in. So as you see on the current slide, in the year 2019, we have identified over 400 reforms in the legal system. Many of those are in regards to trade law and labor law, but also many are in regards to the rights of women in the country, as well as the rights of family law in general. The prominent thing, of course, is women being able to finally get a driving license, but that was just the tip of the iceberg. There's been a lot more reforms going on, empowering women and giving more rights, basically, and making it more transparent, of course, also for families, and in the economic aspect of things, making our legal system more transparent for businesses. So just recently as well, the arbitration court has been created in Saudi Arabia, and the legal system, I think, is a topic for itself. If that's something of interest, then we can also take this up on the agenda at some point for a later session. For today, I'd just like to touch on the fact that we're very aware that it's a requirement for international companies to have a clear and transparent legal system under which they can safely operate. And we have identified that this has not always been the case in the past in Saudi Arabia, which is why we're so ambitious to make changes here to make your life, or in general international businesses' life, easier in the country. So of these, some of the latest reforms, I think here just gives a few examples. We've made it a lot easier for companies to register. So basically, what used to take around 3 days for a company to register with the Ministry of Investment, or SAGIA in the past, is now a process that can mainly be done online and can be reduced to 3 hours. The amount of documentation that's required is also something we've reduced. And which is also something that we've reduced. And with that, of course, we're trying to make life easier for companies that are interested to invest in Saudi Arabia. Next slide, please. I'm just seeing there's a couple of questions already. Gentlemen, would we want to have the questions in between, or should we do a quick Q&A at the end?
Maybe it would be better to have a Q&A part in the end. So
Okay.
I propose to proceed.
Yes, in the end. Just we
Presentation.
announce that to be ready with their questions.
Yeah, I'll be quick with the remaining slides, and then I will hopefully have some time for the questions. Thank you. So a wide range of incentives is being offered by Saudi Arabia as well. There's loan programs that I mentioned. There's financial incentives. There's government procurement law that's been just reissued lately. There's a new tendering law now. Again, all of these things are with the intention to make Saudi Arabia more transparent and more secure for investors to operate in the country. Next slide, please. So yes, Saudi Arabia is a leading G20 economy and still growing. We have 48% of the GCC economy is in Saudi Arabia, and it's the 18th largest economy in the world. This is just to indicate basically that around the GCC and Middle East countries, Saudi Arabia is one of the most important and one of the most highly growing economies in the region. So aside of the opportunities in the country itself, there's also, of course, a lot of opportunities to export from Saudi Arabia. We have an incentive package that's tailored to support companies that want to export out of Saudi Arabia. So any manufacturings and other services that can be created in the country will be supported for export as well. Next slide, please. Just a brief indication, a little bit of numbers. I don't want to flood it. I believe we will be able to share the presentation afterwards as well with the participants. And I think for that, maybe the numbers are more interesting.
Of course, we will share the presentation.
Sure, we will share the presentation. And also, I would like attendants to share their future interests about specific sectors. To make
Wonderful.
the next webinar and the specific ways.
Yeah, that would be great.
Yes,
so
sure.
I'll speed it up a little bit so we have enough time for the questions. And we'll just skip through this slide, maybe to the next one. Yeah, just again, a bit more information about the population, the demographics in the country. I've already mentioned most of this. I think we can move to the next slide. I'm seeing we're running a bit out of time. Saudi Arabia's geography, and I think that's also something that's I'd like to spend maybe a minute on. We have a very diverse geography in Saudi Arabia. We have a lot of natural reserves, and we're logistically located quite central between Europe, Asia, Eastern Europe, and Africa, giving us good access and making it a good logistic hub as well. There's a lot of projects going on now to improve on that. Even, as I said, railway is one of the topics, but also our harbors are currently being reevaluated and being upgraded. So all of this is done, of course, to have a wholesome concept in place to enable Saudi Arabia to continue the growth. Next slide, please. This is what I just mentioned. Logistically well positioned. Next slide, please. And these are some of the infrastructure projects that have been going on. So in Saudi Arabia, we have 29 airports, which is maybe not so well known. Some of them smaller, some of them bigger. Very interesting, I think, is the fact that we have 10 ports around the country, from the east coast to the west coast, and all of these logistic, let's say, networks are being evaluated, as I said, and they're being upgraded constantly. So I believe this in itself makes the country quite interesting in regards to the geographic location. Next slide, please. This is just a small indication of the current mega and giga projects that we have going on in Saudi Arabia. I think one of the most prominent is NEOM. NEOM is a city basically the size of Belgium, and will host a variety of aspects. One of them being, of course, a priority is renewable energy. And with that, there's a lot of new technology driven and supported by the concept of NEOM. We have giga. I'll show you some pictures in a moment just to give you an impression. So there's many of these big projects going on which also offer in themselves already very good opportunities. Next slide, please. Yeah, so these are the giga projects, and with that I'll also come to the end of the presentation, and I'll just show you a few pictures on the next slide, if you please. Gives a bit of an idea. The Red Sea project is a very ambitious topic that's been being developed right now, and the teams are already on site, so it's going ahead quite nicely. Then we have giga, which is another one of the big projects close to Riyadh in the center of Saudi Arabia, which is basically also a entertainment and leisure project. Next one, please. And this, I think, is also important just for you. The first point of contact, as I mentioned, for any company that's interested in investing in Saudi Arabia or establishing their businesses in Saudi Arabia would be my office in the Ministry of Investment. And I'll gladly share my contact details or have them shared. So I'll be there for any questions you might have. We've reformed basically our operations over the past 2 years, and we've set a very clear focus on supporting companies with their interest in Saudi Arabia. And with that, of course, we have a variety of online platforms, as well as direct access to our international teams. Next slide, please. And on this slide, you just get a bit of an overview on the journey of an investor in Saudi Arabia, which, as I mentioned, we would be supporting you each step of the way. And any questions you have, our team would be available for you. Next slide, please. Till now, we've established, if you count it, 9 offices internationally, spanning from the US to Japan. As I said, I'm responsible for the office, which is going to be located in Germany. And from there, basically, we're also covering Eastern Europe. We have a specific office in Russia aside of that. And from these offices, basically, our target is to be closer to the market, closer to the companies, and have the opportunity, of course, to travel to Bulgaria, for instance, and meet with potential investors and support them along their way. And that's the end of my presentation here. I was going to give a little bit of an insight on the support that we've been given throughout the COVID-19 crisis, but I think we'd rather go to the questions and answers. Maybe just 2 words to that. We had specific call centers, we had incentive packages, and still have actually. Our WhatsApp and call center numbers have responded to many thousands of inquiries. And with that, of course, we were able to assure the continuity of business for international companies operating in Saudi Arabia. So, gentlemen, could we go into the questions? And
yes, thank you very much for the presentation, Mr. Raka. And let's answer the questions from our companies. Of course, maybe you decide about the questions. As you can see, there's
quite a few.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm seeing from livestock investment. Gentlemen, would you care to maybe you select 1 or 2 of the questions? That
okay, let's start with just a second. Okay, so the answer to the question of Mr. Christoph is there is your contacts here, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we'll proceed. Okay, so let's about the question of Mr. Dimitrov. would you be interested from universal fittings with wide former drain valve with filling forward mechanism and food control for monoblock and other toilet systems?
Yeah.
Cisterns, sorry, you can see very well. And there is their website. So, are you interested?
Yeah, basically, I think in regards to many of these questions have one thing in common. There is, as I mentioned, a very diverse list of requirements that we have in Saudi Arabia. The big difference we are going through now in comparison to the past is that we are focused more on creating value in the country as well. So this goes in line with any kind of, let's say, service facility, any kind of trading license or manufacturing in the country. It can be assembly, any kind of added value in the country that would grow, would lead to a sustainable growth of our economy, is something that we value these days more than we did in the past. So when it comes to many of these requirements, we either have them tendered by the government or by the projects such as NEOM. And within these tenders, we now have very clear indications on localization requirements. So whatever company has a presence in Saudi Arabia or is looking to establish a presence in Saudi Arabia gets the support of the Ministry of Investment, former SAGIA, as well as a higher ranking in the different tenders.
So there is one more interesting question from Mr. Nikolai Swavov. So there is some brief introduction of their activities, but the question is, if they want to realize big project, as I understand, what kind of partner they should reach? Government, VC funds, private equity investors, banking institutions?
Well, as I said, if the intention is to link this to establishing any kind of a presence in Saudi Arabia, then the first point of contact can gladly be us. We would then support in identifying the right approach and the right, let's say, stakeholders for the business venture. Does that answer the question, or did I miss it?
Well, by my opinion, I suggest when you are going to make the next webinar, to be focused on the joint venture procedures and everything, your tenders, government tenders, private tenders, and just to give a little bit more information, specific information about this. And of course, it will be focused on some sectors. We will collect the opinions and the questions from the Bulgarian side of the business, and you have a specific information to arrange the next webinar.
Okay. That sounds like a good plan.
After the hatch, so we will have enough time to prepare everything carefully and to be involved with the topics very, very carefully.
Gladly.
So it's interesting. Do you have any experience with Bulgarian companies in Saudi?
Some, but I have to admit, to date, unfortunately, I haven't had too many Bulgarian companies in Saudi Arabia that I've been in contact with. I look forward to changing that, of course. And of course, to me, it's the more companies are interested, the more I'm able to do my job. So it's something I look forward to a lot.
Yes, I would like to add a comment that there are few companies that are in negotiation with for some of your mega projects to take a part, like a joint venture. So.
Yeah. So that's, again, as I said, I think also with joint ventures, it's something that we can support in. Of course, it's ideal if a company already has some joint venture partners in mind. But even there, in that case, we can support, we can help out with the frameworks, with legal aspects, as well as other requirements that come in. Again, I'd like to stress that it's not necessary anymore in Saudi Arabia to have a joint venture. So 100% foreign ownership is possible in the country. However, many companies still like to have a joint venture to have some more expertise, let's say, or some more experience in the market. So that's why the qualified joint venture partner is important. And again, that's an option, and we would also be able to support there.
I think this is one of the most interesting topics about the joint ventures. That's why I suggest to discuss it in the next meeting, because it's a big topic.
Yeah.
So, any other question?
So maybe we could say a few words. I mean, because we are talking about the big projects, and what about the SMEs? I mean, the small and medium enterprise. How can they enter the South market, for example? I mean, from food,
IT technologies,
IT companies, etc.
Yeah. Well.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, this will be interesting because as we are SME agency, the most of our companies are small and medium, so I'm not sure they could be a part of such giga projects or such huge projects. But it will be very interesting for them to enter in your market in Saudi.
Yeah. I think there's two things that we could do in this regard. One is, which I'm sure we can exchange information with you in regards to opportunities that we've identified in the country. As I said, we have in the ministry, we have sector specialists for each of the major sectors in the country, from healthcare over food processing, industrial, and so on. These normally have regular meetings with the stakeholders in the country. Those stakeholders include these mega and giga projects such as NEOM, the Ministry of Health, and others are involved there. And they identify opportunities for international investors, which are then shared with us. And on this basis, I can share that information with you, and you can distribute it to your network as you see feasible. That's one approach. The second approach, of course, is when it comes to not a pure trading business or a pure sales business from outside the country. So if it's not an export business out of the perspective of Bulgaria, but it includes in any kind an added value in Saudi Arabia, then I can specifically have our team look into these opportunities for companies. So you can reach out to me directly in this case, and I can see how we can support you. Again, I need to stress the point that it's important for us that this is normally linked to some kind of an added value in the country.
Okay, there is one or two more interesting questions from Mr. Ronen Rusev. It is related and with Mr. That was related from Mr. South, I think. But do you have incentives to attract direct foreign investments like fiscal tax, financial, and etc.? I mean, what? And the other question, which is related, is from Mr. Nikolai Penov. They received unofficial news that Saudi is going to introduce VAT as a mechanism in the country.
Yeah, I was looking forward to this question.
Yeah.
So yes, Saudi Arabia has introduced the VAT at a level of 5%, actually last year already. And we've now, since the 1st of July, increased the VAT to 15%. This is not quite in line of what other economies are doing or other countries are doing. Some of them are reducing VAT right now to, let's say, have more of a stimulus in the crisis situation. The strategy in Saudi Arabia is a bit of a different one, and I guess time will tell at the end who has the best solutions here. But all countries, I think, or most countries in the world currently are establishing different kind of levers to stimulate the economy and to assure cash flows. And as I said, only time will tell who had the best choices there. But yeah, VAT is present in Saudi Arabia, as well as import customs duties. I'm also seeing a question in regards to food imports to Saudi Arabia. These aspects, I mean, it depends on the specifics, what kind of foods, what kind of products. In general, we have the GSO or the SASO, which is a Gulf standardization organization. They identify a lot of the criteria that is required for imports to the country. And then depending on the product itself, of course, there's the different ministries. The Ministry of Health might be involved here. But again, if it's a specific case, I'm sure we can support in finding out who the right contacts are.
Okay. So
I suggest to collect more questions, more opinions, and to figure out the next topics in the future for the next webinar. I hope this meeting was interesting for most part of the auditory.
Yeah, maybe for any further questions, they could send some email to you, or they prefer to contact directly. We will collect, of course, their questions and their needs, but because we will send your presentation to our participants, and maybe they will prefer to contact directly with you.
Yes.
Of course, and with our colleague, Mr. Moisov, which now is here in Bulgaria, but after
just for a few weeks for vacation. So.
Well, enjoy it. The weather is nicer there, I'm sure, right now.
For a few weeks, he'll be there, and he could help to any companies.
Yeah, I think if you could distribute the presentation, and gladly also my contact details. Again, I need to stress, for us, the Ministry of Investment being responsible, it always is linked to some kind of an investment into Saudi Arabia. So, of course, we will gladly support your businesses. We will gladly support your business approach. It's more challenging for us if we're talking about a pure export project from your point of view. The ministry is clearly focused on creating values in the country, and those can be very diverse. There's many opportunities for that, which we can always look at. So please feel free to contact me, and we'll deal with it case by case, I guess.
Okay, so they will because Mr. Dimitrov asking what is the email, but he will receive your presentation, so there is your contacts on the last page.
Just because I see the question of Mr. Filipov. Do you have about the flights, the operation of the flights, Bulgarian flights? So in general, because this is a big topic with GACA, and we are working hard on it now, especially these weeks. Anyway, so if you have just some information about the international flights, just share with the people, so it will be better.
Yeah, I wish I could. For the time being, unfortunately, I have no official information on the flights. Saudi Arabia's borders are still closed right now. There is some flights. We're working on, for instance, special flights for companies that need to send their staff into the country for ongoing projects. So currently, all flights in and out of Saudi Arabia are more on an exceptional basis. There's different rumors on how long this is going to continue, but as in all countries, I believe it always depends on the development of the pandemic and the number of cases of COVID-19. I'm optimistic that within the summer, maybe a couple of weeks or a month, we should hopefully be able to have regular flights again. But again, there's no.
We follow the news, so we will share this information. We hope it will be as soon as possible. It will be better for the tourism, better for the business, for sure.
Absolutely.
Yes,
absolutely.
For sure.
So you'll be here in Germany, or you'll be located in Germany? Or,
yes.
Okay. So you'll be very close.
Exactly, and that's the main intention, of course, for us to have an office in Europe, so we're close by and it's easy to visit companies and also get more of an insight on the requirements of companies in Europe and Eastern Europe, of course.
Yeah. Also, I hope soon, but we'll see, of course. Our agency organized trade missions, so I believe that. By sectors, and I hope that we could organize maybe in the end of this year or in the beginning of next organize big, great missions to Saudi, of course, with your help, with our colleague, Mr. Morsov.
Absolutely. I believe we're all very much looking forward to that to happen sooner rather than later again.
Yeah. The physical part.
Yeah.
We have a huge schedule about the future events, so I hope to become fact as soon as possible.
I'm optimistic. The second half of the year will be better than the first when it comes to this.
Yes.
Okay.
All right.
So there is a lot of questions. We will collect all these questions. Of course, we will send the presentations. Again, but if we will send these questions, and after that we will send your answers to our participants, our companies. Yeah. So, Mr. Raka, thank you very much. It was a great honor for us. Thank you for your support, and I hope to see you soon in physical way. I mean,
thank you very much. Yes, thank you very much for the opportunity, and I very much look forward to visiting Bulgaria sooner rather than later.
Thank you very much. It was my pleasure, Dale, and I hope to work together soon in the next events.
I look forward to it.
I appreciate your support and for everything.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And we'll get to the questions. I'm sorry we didn't have more time for the questions this time, but we'll get to them one by one.
Yes, yes.
Okay. Thank you very much once again.
Thank you. I appreciate
all the best.
All the best
to everyone.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
So it's interesting. There is a question to Mr. Moisov, and maybe we'll.
Well, my contacts, my details are everywhere on the ministry, in the website, on the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, on the Ministry of Economy. So you can find my. Even they will share also with the presentation.
Yes,
so you can find my contacts everywhere.
Okay.
Right. Thanks a lot again.
Thank you very much once again.
All the best, all the attendants. Hope to see you soon.
Thank you, everyone.
Support and
all the best.
All the questions are most welcome. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. All the best.
Bye-bye. Thank you very much. Bye-bye. So thank you very much for all of you. We will send the presentation maybe after a few minutes or after an hour. And of course, we will share and contact details of our colleague, Mr. Moisov. He will be in Saudi after
3 weeks.
3 weeks. So I hope to see all of you or our next seminar, online seminar with our foreign partners. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Have a nice day. All the best to all.